There are approximately 3.17 billion internet users worldwide as of 2016. This number has increased from 2.94 billion from the previous year. Every day, these 3 billion people go about their online daily business thinking that all of their information is secure. But how secure are their passwords and private information? Using a 6-character common word such as orange takes about 3 minutes to crack. A 6-character uncommon word such as wuza takes about an hour and 22 minutes to crack. These passwords are both considered to be useless because of the amount of time it takes to discover them. Using 6 random characters such as JSKERV takes approximately 1 month to crack using the brute force method. The brute force method is when a person attempts to sign in using different passwords one at a time. If your password is sun, they will attempt to sign in using AAA, AAB, AAC, AAD until there is a match. The only thing that stops a brute force attack is higher complexity and longer passwords. A password with 6 random characters and numbers takes approximately 8 months to break. And finally, a 6 random character password with mixed cases, symbols, and numbers takes 219 years to break. Members of the CIA and NASA are required to have a password that takes over 1 year to break. A password that takes 100 years or more to break is considered to be secure for life.
Some common ways that your accounts can be broken into are asking, guessing, brute force, and dictionary tags. But there are plenty of other ways for your passwords and information to be stolen. Some other ways include tab nabbing, keylogging, denial of service, thumb drive malware, bricking, password sniping, and fake websites. Dictionary tags often succeed because many people have a tendency to choose short passwords that are ordinary or common words. By choosing a password that is not found in any dictionary or listing of commonly used words, you are able to defeat dictionary attacks relatively easily. Tab nabbing persuades users to submit login details and passwords to the site by impersonating the website that the user is looking for and convincing the user that the site is genuine. Keylogging is a program that is used to record every keystroke that is made by a computer user. It is usually used in order to obtain access to passwords and other confidential information. A denial of service attack is an attack where multiple systems are used to target a single system, causing a denial of service. Thumb drive malware is a virus that is installed onto a flash drive that can infect your computer when you plug it into your computer and open the file that is in it. Bricking. This is a virus that makes a computer completely inoperable. Password sniping. With the use of Google Glass, it is possible for people to record you typing in your password and then slowing down the video later to see the characters that you typed in. Fake websites. Typing in your username or password into a fake website and then submitting them can allow people to have access to the username and password for the actual site. Some tips for keeping you safe online are: 1. Don't use the same password for everything. 2. If you make a complicated password, write it down on paper in case you forget. 3. Always add some numbers and symbols to your password. 4. Don't tell anyone your password. 5. Don't connect to unfamiliar Wi-Fi networks. If you do connect, don't type any personal information. 6. Cover your webcam when not in use.
In the phone interview I conducted with Professor Dara Rosita, we discussed information security and privacy technology. The first question I asked her was, what exactly is information security and privacy technology? Professor Rosita responded with, information is everything that has to do with personal information. Information privacy is protected through technology. The security dealing with your privacy includes password technology, which protects your data. It also is important to know that policy covers all legal aspects. The second question I asked Professor Rosita was, what can people do to better help protect their personal information from unwanted attention? Professor Rosita responded with, people need to evaluate and see what concerns they have, including their reputation. People need to also be aware of what information is collected about themselves. People need to know what information to protect and why. Before people make purchases with a company, they need to ensure that the service provider is trustworthy. It is also important that people review the privacy policies of a company before making a purchase. The third question I asked Professor Rosita was, what does the future of internet security look like due to recent events around the world? Professor Rosita responded with, the trend is not going to change, it is going to advance and get worse. It is important to be aware of your digital footprint and what you do online. In order to help stop people from getting their identity stolen, they must be educated about what and where they put all of their personal information. People need to promote government action so that we can have our personal data be protected. The fourth question I asked Professor Rosita was, how are the makers of privacy technology improving their product to better help protect their consumers that buy this technology? Professor Rosita responded with, it is very hard to obtain and produce privacy technology because it is very costly. When companies have this technology, they have a competitive edge. The final question I asked Professor Rosita was, what information is the government allowed to have access to regarding a person's security and privacy? Professor Rosita said, we don't have privacy when it comes to the government. She believes that the government needs to justify their actions in order to obtain information. They need to focus their searches and have good processes and procedures. The NSA collects everything from us. Some tips from the interview are, in order to ensure that you have some control of where your information goes, you need to educate yourself. Before making purchases with a company, ensure that the service provider is trustworthy. Also review the privacy policies of a company before making a purchase. The trend is not going to change, it's going to advance and get worse. It is important to be aware of your digital footprint and what you do online. When companies have new privacy technology, they have a competitive edge. We don't have privacy when it comes to the government. The NSA collects everything from us.
Are organizations such as the National Security Agency really protecting us by collecting our private information? Documents obtained by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden reveal that, in a 30-day period, the NSA recorded data on 124.8 billion phone calls, about 3 billion of which originated within the United States. Snowden was charged with espionage and theft of government property. He has once lived in China and in Hong Kong to seek asylum against the United States. Snowden is now currently living in Russia because of the relationship between Russia and the United States. Russia will not return Snowden to the United States so that he can be put on trial. Snowden has recently said that he'd be willing to return to the United States if a fair trial is guaranteed.
Is any communication private anymore? And if it isn't, then what next?
The idea here is there are different kinds of surveillance, right? There's mass surveillance, which is typically done of communications in transit, right, as they cross the internet over lines that you don't own, but you don't have a choice not to use because of the nature of the modern communications grid. You can't say, I want my communications to only route over this network. Once they leave your home, once they leave your handset for your cell phone or whatever device you're using, it's out of your control and it gets routed invisibly across borders, across systems, across enterprises. The danger of this is that any one of these actors, whether they're corporate actors, whether they're governments, and we know for a fact that governments particularly are abusing this capability, as they transit, if they're transiting electronically naked, that is unencrypted, anybody can read these. They can capture these, they can store these, they can do whatever they want with them, and there's no indication that it happened.
These maps that were recorded on May 12, 2016 show some of the attacks that happened worldwide around 4:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The countries where the most attacks are originating from are China, the United States, and the Netherlands. The countries that are being targeted the most are the United States, United Arab Emirates, and South Africa. These maps also list some of the attacks that are being performed. Some of the attack names are Telnet, RFB, RFE, and Microsoft DS. Telnet is a user command protocol for remotely accessing computers. Through Telnet, another user can access someone else's computer by using their own computer. Remote Frame Buffer, or RFB, is a protocol for remote access to graphical user interfaces. Microsoft DS is a port used ever since Windows 2000 was introduced. A port is the end communication in an operating system. Microsoft DS is used for file sharing.
The trend of internet privacy is not going to change, but rather advance and get worse. A popular book by George Orwell titled 1984 might be the best description about what the future of privacy looks like. In this book, the government monitors and controls everything that the citizens do in the name of protecting them from internal and foreign threats. They even go so far as to kill their own people to reinforce the idea that their government is protecting them, and that the only way to defeat their enemies is to allow the government to have complete control of everything. In actuality, it's the government itself that is causing the suffering and removing the dissenters from the society.
A colleague of mine, Brian Martin, and I spent a year and a half researching them and wrote the definitive analysis and engagement of the group called Building a Better Anonymous. Now, of the many insights we have, two matter today. Number one is while they lacked talent in the sophistication of their attacks, they demonstrated just how poor a job we're doing at basic security. I often referred to the summer of lulls, the 50-day rampage, as holding a mirror to our neglect. They showed just how badly we're doing it. It was a real wake-up call for the security profession. And the second and possibly more important thing is they showed that this new form of power, this hacking power, was available to anyone. And it opened Pandora's box.
Recently, we learned that our governments, working in concert, have created a system of worldwide mass surveillance, watching everything we do. Great Britain's George Orwell warned us of the danger of this kind of information. The types of collection in the book, microphones and video cameras, TVs that watch us, are nothing compared to what we have available today. We have sensors in our pockets that track us everywhere we go. Think about what this means for the privacy of the average person. A child born today will grow up with no conception of privacy at all. They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves, an unrecorded, unanalyzed thought. And that's a problem, because privacy matters. Privacy is what allows us to determine who we are and who we want to be. The conversation occurring today will determine the amount of trust we can place both in the technology that surrounds us and the government that regulates it. Together, we can find a better balance, end mass surveillance, and remind the government that if it really wants to know how we feel, asking is always cheaper than spying.